The early life of Salmon Chase. Salmon Portland Chase was born in Cornish, New Hampshire on January 13th, 1808. Following his father's death in 1817, Chase was sent to Ohio to live with his uncle Flander, a bishop. His mother was left with 10 children and a few resources, and so Salmon lived from 1820 to 1824 in Ohio with his uncle. Chase graduated Cincinnati College starting in 1822 and then Dartmouth College, from which he graduated in 1826. He was a member of the Alpha Delta Phi fraternity and Phi Beta Kappa, and he graduated from Dartmouth with distinction in 1826. While at Dartmouth, he taught at the Royalton Academy in Royalton, Vermont. He later moved to the District of Columbia, where he opened a classical school. While studying law under the U.S. Attorney General William Wirt, he was admitted to the war in 1829. The career life of Salmon Chase. Salmon Portland Chase was a U.S. politician and jurist who served as the 6th Chief Justice of the United States. He also served as the 23rd Governor of Ohio, represented Ohio in the United States Senate, and served as the 25th United States Secretary of Treasury, a U.S. Senator, Governor of Ohio, and Supreme Court Chief Justice who served as the U.S. Secretary of Treasury during the Civil War, became known as the Attorney General for Fugitive Slaves for his frequent defenses of runaway blacks. After Lincoln won the election, he asked Chase to serve as the Secretary of Treasury. Chase served in that position from 1861 to 1864, working hard to ensure the Union was well financed during the Civil War. Chase resigned from the cabinet in June 1864, but retained support among the radical Republicans. Partly to appease the radical Republicans, Lincoln nominated Chase to fill the Supreme Court vacancy that arose following Chief Justice Roger Taney's death. Chase served as Chief Justice from 1864 to his death in 1873. Chase later presided over several other landmark cases, including Texas v. White, in which the court ruled that secession was illegal and the Union indestructible. In the case of Hepburn v. Griswold, Chase ruled that the Legal Tender Acts ironically instituted during his tenure as Secretary of Treasury were in fact unconstitutional. He was unsuccessful in 1868 attempt to win the Democratic nomination. He failed in a bid to run as the Liberal Republican candidate in 1872. The Chase National Bank, founded in 1877, was named in his honor.
The people involved in this case were Homer Plessy and Judge John H. Ferguson. Homer Plessy had an issue with something and had to bring it to court, causing a case to grow. The court rendered its decision on May 18, 1896. The court originated in 1892 as a challenge to Louisiana's separate car. On June 7, 1892, Plessy bought a first-class ticket at the Press Street Depot and boarded a whites-only car of the East Louisiana Railroad in New Orleans, Louisiana, bound for Covington, Louisiana. After Plessy took a seat in the whites-only railway car, he asked to leave and sit instead in the blacks-only car. Plessy refused and was arrested immediately by the detective. Plessy was remanded for a trial on Orleans Parish. In this case, Plessy's lawyers argued that the state law which required East Louisiana Railroad to segregate trains had denied his rights under the 13th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, which provided for equal treatment under the law. The judge presiding over the case, John Howard Ferguson, ruled that Louisiana had the right to regulate railroad companies while they operated within state boundaries. Plessy was convicted and sentenced to pay a $25 fine. Plessy immediately slight a writ of prohibition. The Plessy v. Ferguson case was a landmark despising made by the Supreme Court issued in 1896. It upheld the constitutionality of racial segregation laws for public facilities were equal in quality. This case helped create a doctrine known as separate and equal. It went to the civil rights of America. They created the supreme and equal doctrine to satisfy the 14th Amendment. The state legal bribe was prepared by Attorney General Milton Joseph Cunningham. Cunningham was a staunch supporter of white supremacy, who, according to Law-Daughtry 1916 obituary, worked so effectively in restoring white supremacy in politics that he finally arrested with 51 other men of that community and tried by federal officials. On May 18, 1896, In a 7-1 decision written by Henry Billings Brown, the court rejected Plessy's argument. This impacted America by strengthening our civil rights and showing Americans how we all are equal. It created the separate and equal, which guaranteed equal protection under the law of all people. Thank you for listening.